talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.
Welcome back to another episode of Caged In. I'm your host, Krista Carlo. Got a very special guest making her debut on the show. It's Chelsea Chandler. How are we doing today, Chelsea?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I know you got a big fight coming up July 15th. Glad you could carve out a little bit of time, jump on the Zoom and, have a little conversation with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. All right, before we get into it, whenever I get someone new on the show, I do like to dig into the background a little bit, get to know you a little bit better. So can you just kind of talk about where you were born and raised and what was growing up kind of like for you?
Yeah, I was born in Stockton, California. I've lived here my whole life. The only time I left was when I went to University of Miami in Florida for college.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back, started training, and here we are.
Love that. Were you an athlete growing up? Did you play all the sports and everything in high school and whatnot?
In high school, before high school, I played volleyball, basketball, track. And then in high school, I did varsity track. I did basketball, and then I did badminton 1 year too.
Okay.
And cross country. I did that.
There you go. Jack of all trades, as they might say. How did that kind of lead over into MMA? What got you first introduced to the sport? What got you into the gym for the first time? What was that journey like to get into the sport of MMA?
So after my first year of college, my family went to Thailand for the summer, and I started training at Tiger Muy Thai. And I decided to stay out there, take a year off of school, and just fight. Mm-hmm. And I was 5-1 out there in Muay Thai, and then I went back, finished school, came back to Stockton, and then just started training at the Diaz Academy. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked jiu-jitsu, and here we are.
There you go. Were you introduced to jiu-jitsu before you went to the Diaz Academy, or was that class or was that school kind of the first people to introduce you to the sport?
Oh, I was introduced to jiu-jitsu in Thailand, but it was a little bit different. I mean, all the guys out there, this is back in 2009. I feel like the guys, they were all roided out, shirtless, disgusting. Right. It wasn't a good vibe. So then
definitely a different vibe than the jiu-jitsu you learn over here for sure.
Oh yeah, and in the gi, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my first time when I actually liked it was at the Diaz Academy.
That's awesome. What was it like spending time at the Diaz Academy? I assume it was before, the Diaz name kind of blew up. I'm sure. I mean, Nick was big at the time. What was it like kind of learning under those guys who are, now some of the biggest stars in the sport?
Yeah, it was great. It was especially when they had their gym in Lodi. There wasn't a ton of fans and crazy people coming around. So it was hard training every day. I was training 3 times a day, morning jiu-jitsu, sambo in the afternoon, and then jiu-jitsu at night. So I got really good really fast because I was doing it 3 times a day. And, like the average person's maybe doing it once or twice a week. So I'm getting in 21 sessions a week. And I feel like I flowered really fast. And that's why I like jiu-jitsu, because it's never boring. You can always add to your game, which I think is why it keeps me interested.
Oh, I'm sure. There's always room to grow in jiu-jitsu. Even the best in the game still have, levels to work up to as well. So it definitely is one of those aspects of the game that's obviously very important to MMA, but also it's such a cool, it's such a different environment when you're in a jiu-jitsu gym and, you're on the mats, and that versus your stand-up. I'm sure it's just a whole different experience for sure.
Yeah, I love jiu-jitsu.
You mentioned that you did go to the University of Miami. Are you an alumni now? Did you end up getting the degree after you took the year off? What was it like kind of, going to school down in Florida and going to the U? It's a big school.
Yeah, no, it's a big school. It's a great location. It's in Coral Gables, which is right next to Miami. Mm-hmm. I double majored in business law and business management, and then I minored in English. And I graduated on time. So I was taking summer classes when I came back. I really liked it, and I was really happy there. And then I came back to Stockton and then just started training.
That's awesome. So is that something that you'd like to, use your degree and everything that you went to school for? Is that something that you're looking forward to, life after fighting type stuff?
Yeah, well, I use my degree now. My parents have a business. They have a grocery store. So I kind of help them with a lot of business aspects and things like that. And then also with fighting, at the end of the day, it's a business too. So having that business mind frame and seeing okay, there's a future in this or that. It helps me just plan better, I think.
For sure. I think that's also an aspect of sport in general that's kind of overlooked, is the business side of things. Everybody knows that sports is a business, but to have that mindset going into your own career, I think it's important. Sometimes people overlook that and they end up paying for it later. So it is good that you do have that background kind of instilled in you from your schooling, that you can kind of use that to, set things up for the future now and not have to worry about it later. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, no, because fighting isn't forever, it's an
Exactly.
opportunity.
Definitely. I agree 100%. Let's get into your fighting history a little bit. Speaking of fighting, I know you are 5-1 as a pro. Beginning of your career, immediately went right into Invicta FC. What was that kind of like, fighting for Invicta? How did you end up getting involved in that organization?
I love Invicta. Shannon Knapp is amazing. She has a
Mhm.
great platform. And when I went to the UFC, it felt like it was the same level. I didn't have a ton of nerves going into the UFC, leaving Invicta. And it was great. I loved it. It was nice. I forgot the rest of the question.
No, it is important. Like, I think Invicta FC as a whole, as a company, as an organization, especially obviously it's a women's MMA organization. I think it's a good streamline to the UFC. We see that a lot with like the LFAs of the world too. It's just like a nice like stepping stone to get you to that next level. And the quality of talent coming out of Invicta FC, before there was even the UFC, they were turning out some of the biggest talent in the world as far as women's MMA. So when I see people that have Invicta on their records, and especially when they have, go 4-1 like an Invicta like you did, that they're legit. They're coming in, and they're coming in with a good skill set and a good background in MMA. So I wanted to ask you about Invicta, because that it's always like fascinating to me about like people's past fights and what organizations they come out of, for sure.
Yeah, I remember the rest of your question. Okay, so the reason I got into Invicta, so when I fought in Thailand, I was 5-1, which was pro Muay Thai, and I came back to the States and I was training at the Diaz Academy, and
Mhm.
they're pretty notorious for just being crazy fighters, with
Right.
the skill set. So it was really impossible for me to find any type of amateur fight at all. And then
Right.
I already had the pro Muay Thai, so it kind of was like, hey, you got to go pro. So we tried to find fights locally, and we really had no luck. And then Victor Galden, who's my main coach, he is actually really good friends with Shannon Knapp because he was with Nick and Nate back in the UFC days. So he
Right.
was really good friends with Shannon and Leslie also. So we went to the UFC or the Invicta fights at Tachi Palace. I met her, and then that night she was like, "Okay, I'll sign you." So it was actually pretty cool because I was really having hard time finding people to fight. So Shannon
Right.
kind of opened up that door because when you get to Invicta, it's like you're not going to turn down fights, So it helped give like people a reason to fight me, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. Did you have any amateur experience at all, or was that first Invicta fight like your first taste of MMA? Because when you go through like the Tapologies and the Shirt Out websites, sometimes they have amateur stuff on there, sometimes they don't. You can never tell what's legit and what's not. But did you have any amateur experience at all coming in, or was that first Invicta fight like your first taste of like MMA competition?
So that was like I trained with Leslie all the time, so I felt like every training session with her was a fight,
Right.
and so I really didn't have any nerves about going into the fight prepared or not.
Mhm.
But when I was in Thailand, I didn't do any type of jiu-jitsu, but I did have one smoker MMA fight.
Mhm.
But this is back in like 2008,
Right.
2009.
Something that you're
So
probably not going to find on the record books anywhere.
yeah, so I basically just went pro.
There you go. Love that. After you scored a first round rear naked choke, in 2020, you kind of went missing for a little bit, to a couple of years off. Was that strictly because of like COVID stuff? Did you have something else kind of going on behind the scenes? What was going on with the break there?
Yeah, no, I messed up some stuff in my leg.
Oh no.
I was rehabbing, and yeah, and then I came back and fought Courtney King, and then got signed with the UFC right after.
Yeah, you end up going 4-1 in Invicta, a very impressive, run in the Invicta organization there. End up getting the call to the UFC. Do you remember that day you got the call that you were signed to the UFC? What was that moment like? And, what was that day like for you?
Uh, it was nice. It's like a longer, drawn out, more like story, but
Right.
I kind of had a feeling it was coming. There was different people saying different things, and
Mhm.
and then when it finally came, I was just like, I was excited. I was happy, and it wasn't like it hit me. It was kind of like a little bit of a drawn out thing, so I didn't really have a ton of time to like compartmentalized and like, oh, it's here. I
Right.
think it hit me probably the day I fought,
Hmm.
because I was just training so hard, trying to get my weight down and be prepared for my fight.
Exactly. That debut, you were scheduled to fight Leah Letson at 135. She ends up pulling out. You get Julija Stoliarenko at 140. Going into that debut, you're obviously preparing for Leah. How'd the game plan change from what you're preparing for versus Leah versus what you're preparing for now versus Julia, and then at the changed weight of the 140 pounds?
So for Leah, I was doing more stand up, but
Mhm.
it was nice because it was like a, I don't know, 8 or 9 week camp. I think I got 3 months. So I
Right.
did the first 4 or 5 weeks of all stand up. And then, and like jujitsu is pretty rough on the body. You know, it hurts your
Mhm.
neck, hurts everything. So then when I got the call for Julia, it was like, okay, so I've been doing all this stand up and I was like, okay, that's perfect. Now I'm ready to go hit the jujitsu again. So it worked out perfectly because I did a ton of stand up and then I went straight to jujitsu and my body felt good and I was really happy with that. And I'm a brown belt in jujitsu, so I knew I was prepared to fight her.
For sure.
Um, so I wasn't too worried about her skill set.
Exactly. Going in early in the first round, she shoots the takedown pretty early, ends up getting you in an armbar position. Is that something that were expecting for her, like so hot out the gate, beginning of round one in your UFC debut, for her to come out and put the pressure on you like that?
No, of course. I mean, I knew she was going to do that. That's what she just had done to Jessie. She
Hmm.
ripped her arm off.
Yeah.
So so she takes me down and I'm like, you idiot. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm not about to get armbarred in front of everybody, right? So I mean, I practiced every day getting out of the armbar. My arms are real flexible and I spin out and so I wasn't too worried about it, but I feel like she really blew her wad because like when you hold someone down in jujitsu, you can hold them down like with a lot of energy, or you
Hmm.
can hold them down and like let them flow. I felt like she was holding me so tight that by the time she fell on bottom, like I could feel her energy just drop.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you end up turning that around and getting to the feet, landing some big shots,
yeah,
end up finisher in the first round, ground and pound, TKO. About as good a UFC debut as you can ask for. You secure the performance of the night bonus as well. You get out of there in the first round with a dominant TKO victory. How was that day like for you overall? What were the emotions like?
it was great. I was really happy. I mean, I trained my butt off for that fight,
Hmm.
and I was just happy that it all came together and it worked out. And then it was kind of nice being in the Apex. And for mine, nobody was there because I think Zuckerberg or whatever had rented out
Oh
the
yeah, it
place.
was that card. That was the same
So
card.
so nobody was there and like for punches and stuff, when there's people there you don't really get to hear the impact of the
Hmm.
punches, but when I had her on the ground after I reversed her and I was hitting her, it sounded like it just was so loud and it gave me so much confidence how hard I was hitting her
Right.
that it really made me excited. And yeah,
That was the cool part about, fights at the Apex, especially as like a fan from home, that you can hear everything in there. And
everything.
especially that card, especially like you said, there was literally nobody in the crowd. Yeah, it is interesting to hear from the fighter's perspective too, about like the sounds and everything that you can hear in there when there's literally an empty building, like a big size, a good sized building too, with literally nobody in it. It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, it was really loud. Like the punches were just loud.
I'm sure. I mean, you were landing some big ones, so I'm sure you could hear them very well over there. Uh, you did secure that 50K bonus. Did you splurge a little bit when the 50K hit the bank account, or did the business side of you kind of make you tuck it away for later?
It took like 6 weeks and it finally came into my account on my birthday, which was kind of
Okay, best birthday
I
ever.
didn't I didn't splurge on anything. I actually just bought a house, so I
Okay,
put
congratulations.
the money towards that.
That's
Yeah. So
nice. All right, let's get into it. UFC Vegas 77. Let's talk about your fight camp a little bit. I know you are over at Cesar Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Is that like what you call home? Do you have any place else that you cross train at? What's the fight camp looking like for July 15th?
so I'm in Stockton. I'm also training up in Sacramento for my strength and conditioning. I'm also going up to Gracie Fighter, Cesar Gracie Jiu Jitsu a couple times a week, and training here at Big Boss Muay Thai, and then training here with Victor Galdens, doing a ton of jujitsu, sambo stuff. So I'm pretty well rounded, and I'm really excited for this fight.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to see you get in there, especially coming off that UFC debut. We're ready to see, part two of Chelsea Chandler. That's for sure. You're going in there, UFC Vegas 77, taking on Norma Dumont, who is 9-2, 5-2 in the UFC. Looking at this fight, looking at this matchup, how do you feel about the matchup versus Norma? Where do you see yourself kind of having the advantages here?
Honestly, I feel like I have the advantage everywhere. Her wall work is, I think it's gotten better over time, but I still don't think it's as good as mine.
Mhm.
And then I don't think her jujitsu is that great either. So, and then stand up wise, she's got good punches. I mean, she throws with her eyes closed and she throws power. And when someone's throwing power, you always have to worry because the gloves are so small that, I mean, even if they're not the most technical, they can still knock you out. So I think she's a very good, dangerous opponent, and I'm really excited. But I also think she's very beatable.
For sure. She is 9-2. Within her 9 victories, she only has 2 finishes, none of those coming by knockout, only 2 of those coming by submission. Is that something that you kind of look at when you see your opponent who you're matched up against? Are you kind of going in there expecting her to kind of grind out a 3-round fight versus you?
When you say grind, I really don't think she grinds her fights out. To be honest with you,
All right.
I think that they're just boring. She's a counter puncher, and I think the fights that she doesn't do as good as when people are pushing her and pressuring her, and you can see she gets tired. She gets tired with grappling exchanges, and I plan on going a full hard 15 minutes pressuring her, putting the beat down on, and I think she's going to break before the 15 minutes is over, and that's what I think is going to happen.
Definitely. This fight is taking place at 145 pounds. Is this a weight class that you kind of feel comfortable in? I know you had your come up was at 135. You are ranked in the 135-pound division in the UFC. But where does your body feel best when you're in there competing?
You know, people cut a lot of weight to make the 35. I cut a lot of weight to make the 35. But when you're cutting that much weight, your performance, it changes too. And when you're training for a fight, you might not be able to eat as much. So you might not be able to go as hard. Like right now I'm training really hard and I have the energy to train as hard as possible. And when you're not on a calorie deficit, you're less likely to get injured.
Hmm.
Uh, like you see with the Macy chick, Macy Chasson, she just pulled out of her fight
Right.
because she's like 6 foot tall and they're trying to get her to cut to 35 and like stuff's gonna break.
Mhm.
So I'm really happy with this weight for this fight and I'm taking it fight by fight. But I'm able to train really hard, eat well, and be really strong. So I'm excited about this weight and there's a lot less stress
Definitely.
regarding like the menu.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it takes a little bit of pressure off you, and 10 pounds is a lot of weight to have to cut down to. So I'm sure that you're very happy about being it because yeah, you're right. When you are in a caloric deficit, your body doesn't work the same as it does when you're fully hydrated and fully you know all your food's working out the way that's supposed to. But I think like the big talking point now and like kind of like the headlines is since Amanda retired, she had that 145-pound belt. I think people are just kind of expecting that this 145-pound division is just going to kind of fall by the wayside a little bit. How do you feel about like that topic? Are you does that kind of put a little bit of pressure on coming in and fighting at 145-pound now? After that announcement, and maybe some of you guys that are fighting at that weight now can kind of come in and save that weight class, if you will.
Honestly, I don't blame the UFC. I mean, you look at these fights at 45 and they all suck. The
Mm.
girls are going in there playing pitter patter and they're not really knocking anybody out and the fights are boring. And I mean, yeah, kill the division if nobody's doing anything and talking shit or just doing anything to like bring some type of awareness to the weight class.
Hmm.
But I'm planning on going in there and kicking butt and doing what I got to do. So Dana didn't necessarily say it's gone. He said possibility. So I feel like if I go out there and I do what I got to do, they'll have nothing but they'll do something with it.
For sure,
So
I agree.
and then with Nunez, I mean, look at Conor McGregor, look at all these other people that retired and came back. Even like Ronda retired for that year, came
Hmm.
back and fought Nunez. And
Hmm.
then I was reading something about them saying Ronda might be coming back. So, there's a lot of options as long as I do my job and do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not too worried. and I know I can go out there and do what I got to do. So
Exactly. It's not something that should put any added pressure on you or anything. You're just going in there to do your job, and you're going for an exciting fight, an exciting finish, whether it's at 145, 135, whatever weight class it is. So there should be no added pressure to you. Go out there and do what you're training to do, and people are gonna be watching for sure. And we've seen this before with this weight class stuff too, right? Like after Mighty Mouse left, the men's flyweight division was on the fritz as well, and now that's alive and thriving. So I mean, it's any possibility is available in this scenario for sure. You are currently ranked in bantamweight division, like we talked about. Is that a weight class that you would like to revisit at some point, or if you could stay at 145, is that kind of where you'd like to be?
oh, I could do both, but
Yeah.
right now I feel like if I go beat this chick, knock her out in the first round, I feel like I could easily have a title shot against, say, like Jermaine Durandame, who was the first champion. She just came back from having a baby,
Hmm.
and I beat this girl. She just beat Carol Rosa, I think, who's number 9, and then Carol Rosa's fighting number 6, which is Yana, this week, and I think Carol Rosa probably will get it done. So, I mean, you look at the big picture. If I beat Norma, I should be ranked 5, 6 because she beat Rosa, who's probably going to
Right.
beat Yana. So, I mean, things make sense. If I
Yeah.
don't got to wait to 35, 50 times, I could do it. So,
Exactly.
the-
Doing the MMA math there for sure.
yeah, MMA math. Yeah, it always works out. Not
Of
too late.
course. Every time it's a perfect science. Since Amanda has left, she has left an opening at the 135-pound division as well. Do you have any kind of like predictions or takes on who you think is going to be the next to claim that title at 135?
Um, honestly, like I was saying, people talking shit and things like that. The only person that's doing their job right, I think, is Pena,
Hmm.
who I think I'd kick her ass.
Yeah.
But she's at least doing the marketing right. So I think they're gonna probably give her a title fight against probably, I don't know. Aldana's last performance was pretty sucky, but
Hmm.
maybe they'll give her Holly Holm depending on how the main event goes on my card. So I think there's a lot of things out there that got to get settled, and I think it'll be our fight card that settles these things. So
Definitely, yeah, definitely a lot of question marks, up in the air. And people are getting kind of like impatient, which doesn't make sense because Nunes literally just retired like 2 weeks ago, and everybody's kind of asking all these questions about what's going to happen. But Uncle Danny knows how to handle these things, and everything's going to play out the way it's supposed to. Last question before I get you out of here: what can the fans expect for you on July 15th? When that cage door closes.
they can expect me to come forward, give a beat down, and come out with my hands raised.
Hell yeah, I love to hear it. All right, Chelsea, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you. Best of luck on July 15th. We'll be rooting for you. Anything that you want to say, anything you want to plug before I get you out of here?
Yeah, I just want to thank my coaches, Big Boss Muay Thai, Felipe Martinez Boxing, Game Fit, Victor Galden, Val Ignatov, Sambo, Cesar Gracie, Footlock Sean, and my sister, all my other training partners, and I'm excited for this fight, and I'll see you guys July 15th.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate you.
Yeah. All right.
Got down for the count and he can't even talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.